Okay, we're going to see if this is live now. Make sure the microphone's turned up. So, according to this, we are live right now. If you are joining us, welcome. Checking on the TikTok, checking on Facebook, checking on YouTube. Y'all do bear with me. This is the first time trying this out. So, this is going to be a test run as much as it is anything else. Let's see if I can get that centered up there. It'll work. Let's see. Open up another tab and take a look here. And it does look like it is going on live on Facebook. Hold on while I get into moderator mode on there. Okay, and I've got comments active there. So let's get the YouTube one up too. And if you are joining me right now, like I said, bear with me, be patient. This is first time going live and also first time, let's see. Yeah, first time going live and first time, of course, having to moderate all by myself at the same time. It does appear to be on though. Okay. It's opened up. So check there. And let's get the final one going. Oh, I do not need to have a TikTok. Come on. Come on. Bring me to my page. I don't need the feed. What go live? I should be live. Okay. So that's the one that I'm not 100% sure about. Back over here. Back over onto the Facebook side. Hello, Drew. Hello, Mary. Hello, Jessica. If y'all could verify that I actually am coming through audio wise, cool. Good deal. Is it coming through clear? Hello, Margot. There is a delay slightly on my end, so I am watching just obvious. Okay. All right. So Facebook is being real easy about checking and making sure that we've got that I can see the feed and everything. However, I do not have any way of checking the live stream status on TikTok. So I'm not sure if that's working or not. It does look like we are live on Facebook and on YouTube at the same time. So at least that much is working. Talking about the farmers bill and where do I stand? Firmly beside the farmers. The bottom line is, let's see. One, I will go ahead and I do not know the ins and outs of the bill as it currently stands. I'm not sure where it is status wise. I just know that we're overdue for a recall. The biggest thing that we need is simply for the markets to stabilize so that farmers actually have reliable ways to sell on the broader market. Now, one thing I'm actually in favor for is incentives for incentives to go back to farm to table practices here in the state because with agriculture being our biggest industry in the state in general, the fact that we have agriculture as a driving force while we have food insecurity for 1 in 5 children in the state seems absurd. So while I understand the allure and the need to sell on commodities markets the way the majority of our large farmers do, I really want to see more practices that are getting the food here in state to the people who need it. So that we're not dealing just in the mass commodity crops like soybeans, rice, um, but smaller produce areas where we've got farm fresh available to the local populace at reasonable prices. Now in combination with that, we've also addressed the overall input cost for the farmers. So when we're and again, that's being impacted largely by a lot of the trade deals that are going on or like going on that are blowing up when tariffs are being put on allies and trading partners unnecessarily. You look at trying to get potash in from Canada. That's one of the primary sources for potassium for the fertilizer for the farms. That being driven up in cost by needless tariffs on it are hurting not just the farmers, but hurting everyone down chain because I heard the farmers, they have higher input costs. You end up with a slimmer profit margin as a result. I end up with Norton wanting they're switching to a different type of network, that one. Um, but anyway, it's not a single issue thing that gets fixed easily. It's yes, there needs to be a farm bill to address things, but there needs to be a larger discussion about all of the different mechanisms that are at play that are impacting not only us as a state economically, but us as a state individually and as people. How that impacts families, how that impacts our children, how that impacts everything. Uh, Probably well, I'm not sure that this would be outside the purview of my office, or not, but I would actually like to see something that benefits, not just the farm to table for the families, but for the schools, to where if school lunches are being taken care of by purchasing from farms and local producers to be prepared for the children, and that's making sure they're getting fed while they're in school, whether it's a breakfast program, lunch program, whatever, ensuring children have nutritious meals at school so that that's handled while at the same time benefiting our local farmers. That seems like a good win. And it seems like something that should go hand in hand on things. So, if there are any particulars on the on farm issue you'd like to know about, we have to delve into it. Those are the overall issues where I'm yeah, and as Drew said, please, 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 please share this out. Oh, you're welcome, Mary. Like, hopefully that addressed it thoroughly. It's always kind of tough because I've had people that'll ask about an issue, and frequently they will be talking about a topic that's very specific in one when it's actually something larger. Hey, Colt, man, good to see you in here, dude. Um, those that don't know, ran into him yesterday. I was up at one of his town hall events up in Ozark, out at Paradise Pizza. So good to see you in here, man. I appreciate you. Drew, since I know you're the one who can rely on this one, would you do me a favor in the chat? Hey, Sam, what's up? Um, Drew, if you would you hop over onto TikTok and let me know whether or not this is going live on TikTok? Because I trying to bring it up on the laptop because I'm doing this simulcast through a third party app. Um, it's kind of difficult for me to tell. So if somebody can let me know, um, just like I said, hop over there real quick. Let me know what's going live, and just so I know if the app is working correctly or not. Margot was my first priority when I get into Congress. So many things to try and figure out which one's going to be first. Okay, that kind of gets into almost a meta question. First priority, beyond above and beyond anything else, first priority when I get into Congress is establishing to everyone else in Congress that I am not there. I am there to work with them. I am there to be their colleague. I am not there to be their buddy. I am not there to their pawn in any kind of power play. I am there to represent the people of Arkansas's fourth district, and that's the job. I this is something that Colt and I talked about briefly, as well as some of the other people at the town hall yesterday, where you see people that they arrive in DC, and a lot of the establishment people take them in, take them under a wing, take them out, for lack of a better term, woo them, make them feel special, and make them feel almost indentured or beholden to them in some way. Uh, and one of the things we talked about is that maybe it's just a facet of my age. I'd be going at 54 instead of being younger. I don't know whether it's age. I don't know whether it's just my mentality in general because I've never been very quickish. But they can save it because that's not a tactic that works well on me. I'm not one that I'm live and I'm channels always trying to bear in mind how I'm going to phrase things, but blowing smoke up my ass is never going to get you very far. So my first priority is going to be establishing that I'm not here for anybody's specific agenda other than the people of Arkansas, in particular the fourth district. Uh, you can come at me with invitations. You can try and include me in the in crowd. My first priority is getting things back on track. Now, in the overall, beyond the immediacy of the human aspect of what happens when you get there and things like that. Okay. Well, it said I can, but let me get back to this. Thank you for checking on that. I'm gonna go over there and double check in a second. Uh, Beyond that, my first priority in Congress is going to be addressing healthcare cost. I think that's one of the things that has to be addressed, especially with so many people losing access to healthcare. Of course, most people know my wife works at an outpatient mental health clinic. We've seen people losing coverage. We've seen that be a direct impact within their lives. To that end, I will say that's another thing we intend to do is, when elected, I don't intend to still operate a business that I could then benefit from when uh, when passing legislation. So we will be shutting the office down. We will be divesting ourselves of that as a benefit. My wife has already spoken with some of the clinics. She will continue to see her clients. She will continue to see other people and help them out, with her practice and with her license and degree and talents and skills. But, I grew up born under Nixon, was there when Ford was around, but I still remember Carter. I still remember him selling off his peanut farm because it was you should have an office where you could make decisions you're directly going to benefit off of. So I don't feel that it would be appropriate for me to continue owning and operating a mental health clinic while being in a position to write legislation that could benefit me financially personally. That's a big deal. So, on that note, um, thank you. I love my wife too. Um, on that note, it would be healthcare. Followed immediately behind that would be trying to restore education reform and education standards. Uh, ideally, ideally towards that end on education, it would be working with whatever remains of the Department of Education, but also working with the administration here in the state, whomever that might be in charge at the time, since I know we do have a candidate in the chat. It would be working with them to make sure that the federal funding that is coming in to assist with our education uh, is going to the public schools and going to benefit the people who are living there and the children that are in there. See, when elected, anything that Westerman has done in the districts, what would I undo that he has done? I would say probably the most immediate impact of things that Westerman has done that has impacted the 4th district. It's kind of hard to say because a lot of what he's done has been he's done through inactivity rather than by deliberate action. Um, he, in the sense of he hasn't actually looked out for the interest of those in office. He has looked out for those in power. He's looked out for the corporations, things like that. Uh, so yeah, but medication costs 100%. I'll jump back in a second. Um, I think a lot of what I would want to see undone that Western has done in particular would be a lot of what a lot of what resulted from the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. We saw that thing come through, um, that that began removing healthcare from people that to ballooned up the deficit, that gave tax breaks to the rich, that defunded programs that were very necessary. And again, getting back to Mary's question about medication costs, you know, giving the tax breaks to the ultra the richest 1% among us, that removed funding and ballooned the deficit where spending could go on towards actually assisting those who need medication on a regular basis. So yes, addressing medication costs would be a major thing. I know we had the Trump RX plan come out, which was, to put it politely, laughable. That's laughable and borderline criminal. Anytime it's bad enough that we've got somebody trying to slap their name any and everything all the time. That's an ego that simply cannot be fed enough. It is completely insatiable. Um, but who's putting things through that mirror items that are already available, such as GoodRx, things like that, which have their own inherent problems, um, but then trying to profit off of it as well. That's just problematic. Um, and now towards that end, the easiest way to address medication costs, and most people do realize this, I'm an advocate for universal health care. And the reason being is when you have universal healthcare, single payer system, whatever you want to call it, you have a better negotiating power when pushing back against medication costs. It gives you more leverage in that arena. Um, now, for that is we could look at, if we look historically, we go back to policies that we saw pre-Reagan, and in particular, I always go back to looking at taxation policies we had under President Eisenhower. Corporations and ultra marginal tax rate of 91%. Uh, part of the way that corporations were incentivized to avoid that or to offset that were to reinvest in research and development. That in particular, the pharmaceutical industry, because then when they are bringing something new, yeah, thought about how to fund it. Yeah, because we're talking about marginal tax rates on the wealthiest 1%, implementing marginal tax rates on unrealized capital gains, things like that. Oh, hey Diane, it's good to know you're on here. Appreciate you jumping in too. Um, no, a lot of the how to fund it on funding individual healthcare. It is a matter of putting in a marginal tax rate on the wealthiest 1%. A lot of a lot of people kind of get lost in mathematics on it. What we have right now is that a very, very small group of people control over 50% of the total wealth in the country. Um, and that kind of gets baffling to some people. It's some equation. And I almost wish I had a whiteboard behind me. I could sit there. I may have to look at that in a future stream. But when you're dealing with 50% of the wealth being consolidated with a few people who have an excess of funding, and we're not talking about people who are just a little bit better off. We're talking about people who have orders of magnitude more wealth and resources than the average person. Um, Putting in a marginal tax rate where it doesn't kick in until after a certain income point or after a certain total wealth point. Um, that's something that we should look at because we do have more billionaires than ever before. Um, and I've always tried to say, people that vote billionaires in office, obviously we're dealing with one right now. Um, if you want to figure out what you personally might have in common with a billionaire, the first step is to get $500 million, which would be half a billion. So think about how far removed you are from $500 million, and then realize that once you got there, you're only halfway to having something in common. That sometimes helps put it in perspective. So for me, putting in an increased marginal tax rate, even a progressive tax rate, where it does go up higher the earning or the total value is, um, putting something in so people who do have that amount of wealth are paying back into the system because let's be honest, you cannot amass that much wealth without the support of a society enabling you to gather that many resources. That's just inherent in there. So a marginal tax rate on that, again, putting in something on unrealized capital gains, again, above the marginal point so that you're not, de-incentivizing anybody. Or you're not penalizing people who are simply trying to get ahead. Um, but the ones where we've got microtransactions operating on Wall Street, you know, down to a microsecond and cashing in millions and millions of dollars per second. Those types of transactions, there's a lot of funding that could be taxed properly to go back in to assist without anyone actually even being financially impacted. There's a larger topic we get into about the liquidity of finance with which you go back into the system when you provide that back to someone with lower income rather than allowing it to be hoarded. Um, and you end up with a better return on investment for it. So it's for every, and I'd have to look at the current research. I know the last time that I checked out, it was for every dollar spent on a social program, you need back $1.20 worth of economic drive. Because when you're assisting the people on the lower income or lower scale of the income, they don't have the ability to sit on the raw interest. That has to go right back into survival. So that's money that immediately goes back in for groceries, for gas, for rent, for all kind of other things. Whereas if you went to someone who is wealthy enough they don't have to spend it, then it simply goes into a bank account and begins drawing interest for them. That's great for their own personal wealth, but that doesn't do anything to drive the economy in the broader sense. So it's kind of a long way around to say that's how funding universal healthcare is. Going back in and reviewing how we're taxing the wealthiest among us and taxing corporations, which would then incentivize on the corporate side, it would incentivize them to put more money into research and development, put more money into put more incentivizing them to lower costs on things instead. Um, it's one of the areas where again, I was a huge proponent of the ACA. I self-admittedly thought the Affordable Care Act was one of the first times that I personally was ever able to have insurance. That was massive for me. Uh, but the Affordable Care Act was imperfect when it went in. It was just the best we could do at the time. Or not the best we could do, it was the best that we could legislatively get through because it was, based off of a policy that was already in place for Republican government through Mitt Romney. So that made it very difficult for any Republicans in Congress to argue against it because they would have been arguing that Republican policy didn't work. And it got through and it got people coverage and everything else. Now, what we've seen since is we've seen nothing but record profits for the healthcare industry. We've seen insurance companies posting record profits over and over. Matter of fact, I had a news push from AP News recently, but they're making record profits, and we're still seeing worse healthcare outcomes. We have to find a way to actually make sure that's benefiting the people that it is supposed to help. It is supposed to be benefiting us, the consumers, the citizens, where that's providing healthcare to us, not providing shareholder value for just those who can invest. We need to we need to reevaluate looking at our healthcare system, how we handle it as actual healthcare instead of a for-profit model purely. You can have both. Okay, let's see. Hang on, Diane. Let me take a look. See more. So if you want to share on cuts and subsidies, especially in medicine. Um, well, as we were talking about earlier, I mean, prescription medications, just in general, the costs have gotten out of hand. Again, I feel like if we did go back to, like a better term, what I call the Eisenhower model, if you're incentivizing corporations to reduce their taxes by reinvesting in research and development and other mechanisms, um, you could tax incentivize them to lower the cost of the medication just as well. You can call it a subsidy on it, you can call it a tax break or whatever, but it is saying, hey, if you make this easier on the consumer, we can make things easier on you. That's a win-win at that point where things are going to be beneficial. Now, part of that, we may need to investigate patent law as it relates to medications because, again, being in the healthcare industry, that's one thing that my wife and I are always acutely aware of. Is when the patent and the medication runs out and they're looking to protect that IP and protect their value on it, um, you get into the pharmacology of it where they will make a minor change to the medication. They will add one thing on to it or remove something from it, but they will change the chemical nature of it just slightly so that it still does the same thing, but also has one other effect. And and it won't change the efficacy of the medication. It just changes the nature of it substantially enough for them to renew it and then get a new one on it so that they can then begin pushing that. And that's where you start seeing a lot of money going into the advertising budgets rather than in R&D. Um, uh, One of the ones, this is not a phenomenal, it's not an example of it in the larger one. So, Jessica, I'll get to yours here in a second. That one just popped up. I'm gonna hit see more to read the whole thing. One of the medications that's on the market that, and this is not me picking, but just at random, Tylenol PM. That's one that I remember in particular jump. My wife used to use that for sleep, and when we first met, I asked her, I'm like, "Why do you keep using this?" She's like, "Well, because this is what helps put me to sleep." Well, then why aren't you just buying Benadryl? What do you mean? Well, when you look on Tylenol PM, the active ingredients are simply Tylenol portion, the acetaminophen, and then there's a diphenhydramine in that's which is just the active ingredient. That's all it is. There's no substantive difference between taking one Tylenol PM or just taking a Tylenol and a Benadryl. And if you're not in pain, if you don't need the pain relief or the anti-inflammatory or, you know, anything from the Tylenol, the acetaminophen, there's no reason to have that chemical in the body. There's no reason for your, like a term, you don't need to put your liver through a treatment process. Not that it's problematic, but it's something that if you aren't educated on the medications themselves, you can end up doubling up. Um, that's one where, say, you're fighting cold and flu and you're feeling like garbage and stuff. And if you were to take, say, NyQuil, and then you're gonna take Tylenol on top of that, and then you might take a Tylenol PM, that'd be 3 different sources of acetaminophen. That would be taking dangerously high levels potentially, depending on how much you're taking of each, without realizing it unless you read the back of the box and understood what all medications you were taking. Uh, that can become dangerous. That's why some of those warning labels are on things, but a lot of people have just kinda got to the point of hand waving away the warning labels because they think it's only there because somebody got sued, and it's like, well, they get sued because it's dangerous, but it's also you need to be educated on what's in, and we run into that on the prescription side too. There's I will come armed for bear next time, with a little bit more on that one, with where we see them protecting patents by changing some of the chemicals, just to keep the market share up. If you excuse me, you're very welcome, Diane. Jessica, if you give me 1 second, Carbon has just entered the room, so come here, come here, come on. There you go. Everybody, say hi, Carbon. She decided to come in and join us, so she's in my lap now. Okay. Okay, so Jessica. Oh, okay. So Jessica, before we get to yours and the Fair Care Act, Drew is pointing out that when I was asked, will Wendy and I live in the district and not DC like Westerman? Yes. That's the easiest question I'm going to get asked all night. Yes. We 100% plan on living here, not in DC. I I am very firmly a believer in the fact that this is, being a congressman is by design a part-time job. The majority of the time that's being spent there when you're not in session, a lot of it is, again, it's the whining and dining, it's the horse trading, it's all the other behind the scenes stuff that nobody wants to really talk about that much. Um, but I don't, at least at this point, see any reason to be in DC when the people I'm representing are back here in Arkansas. So it would be my intention during every recess to get back to Arkansas and talk to the people in the district. And to that end, this is already in the newspaper. It's not anything new. We've already been looking at homes. Like we are planning on relocating from our home, which is so far outside of the district. We're this massive 4.8 miles outside. So we're definitely drastically removed from the daily lives of the constituents. Um, but no, we do not intend to have residents in DC like that. I've already heard about Mr. Westerman choosing to his office. I absolutely have no qualms about that. It's actually kind of it was reassuring to me to find out that that was an option because that is what I intended to do and didn't know if it was all right. So finding out that that's what he already does, oh, good. That means it's one less thing I'm going to worry about. Uh, so no, we intend to maintain residence, not only here in Arkansas but relocating into the district. So, oh, thank you for sharing that with the press. Now back to Jessica. So your question, Congressman Washington is trying to push the Fair Care Act. Tell us about why the Fair Care Act constituents when it comes to affordable health care. I should have known this would come up, and I should have brought it with me because I've got the entire thing printed out up in the front of the house. Um, Stack about that thick. Anyway, the Fair Care Act that Westerman is trying to push. One, this is his third go around with it. He has tried to push it. He pushed it through in 22, 24. He resubmitted it this year in 26. Um, it has never gotten out of subcommittee. It has never gotten a co-sponsor. It has always arrived to absolutely no support whatsoever. The core is the underlying process or the underlying premise upon which it rests. The Fair Care Act, for those that don't know, it's a healthcare that operates on a health savings account premise. It's you would be able to put money aside pre-tax for healthcare costs, and allegedly thereby save money and this, that, the other. Some of the problems with that are one, my biggest issue with it actually is you are trying to preach a health savings account as a means of saving money to people who are already living paycheck to paycheck. If you don't have money to set aside in savings already, then you certainly do not have money to set aside into a health savings account, especially when gasoline. Jessica and I just went across the state literally yesterday, and the majority of places we went, it was almost $4 a gallon, if not right under it. I think the highest that we saw was 3.89 per gallon. Um, you know, that's the reality of it, folks. And where we saw it at 3.89 a gallon, were in places where people were having to fill up there to drive to work because they were small towns where there wasn't any economy. You are absolutely not living. You're not earning your living there. You're having to pay that to drive to where you're working to earn a living, and it's making it more difficult as a result. Uh, so it's once again, it's the basic underlying premise that the GOP pushes that you can somehow push financial literacy as a solution for people where literacy is the issue. It's literally just not having access to either a livable wage or affordable necessities for life. That's just disingenuous in general. Now, some of the issues that I take with Affordable Care or with the Fair Care Act, not Affordable Care Act, sorry. Some of the issues I have with the Fair Act are the stipulations on how you can spend from that health savings account. One of them, you cannot spend on it towards anything in a deductible for your insurance plan. So it's a health savings account, but you're not allowed to spend that money on deductible costs for your health insurance. What what kind of sense does that make? Sometimes your deductible is the very thing that you are needing to meet, because you do end up with people, in order to try to save money on their monthly premiums, they choose plans or have their plans chosen for them by by their employers because they'll just limit what you have access to. But you'll have a plan that has a deductible that is such a high barrier that it's a problem in itself. And again, we run this all the time in mental health, where a lot of our services, uh, every year, we just self-admitting, we have to brace ourselves because a lot of policies, mental health, that the coverage is considered a deductible payment until it's met. So every year, we've all to kind of brace. We go into the end of the year realizing that in January, for us, it's deductible season. So we have to make sure that we have enough finances saved up to survive through deductible season when people are going to be short on money, where they're not necessarily going to be able to pay on a regular basis. We're going to have to work with them uh, until we get past that point where the insurance is once again picking up the tab on it. And that's just a simple reality for us, as healthcare practitioners and as healthcare owners. Um, you're stuck. As a patient, you're just stuck when you need the care. You can't stop just because you can't afford it, but if it's going towards a deductible, well, however much your deductible may be, I mean, I still remember days of 12 and $15,000 deductibles in total out of pockets. Trying to tell someone that they're going to benefit by, "Here, you can set aside money to save pre-tax in your health savings account, but that money can only be spent in certain ways, and it can't be used to go towards your deductibles. So you're still going to be out the money in the meantime." It's just disingenuous. It is seriously, it is purely disingenuous and completely disconnected from the reality of how most people are trying to survive, especially here in the Fourth, where you do have, a higher rate of poverty on things. Um, I know you can look at the statistics online, and the average income level in the Fourth is supposed to be $1,000 a year. The problem with that is that when you break that down, if you understand math and know how it's calculated, if you know how many people have a lot of money, um, from being from wealthy families and things like that, having higher income brackets, you can real quickly start figuring out exactly how many people are below the poverty line in order to bring that number down to that share. And I've personally met people where they're struggling to try to get by on 12 to 18,000 a year, sometimes lucky to be at 24,000 a year. And it's simply not enough. Can't make ends meet. Not if you're with rent prices rising, not if you got in on a mortgage with a variable rate that is now untenable. And you're having to cover higher gas prices. There's just no way to do that. Um, okay, Drew is saying, question sent to him. How will I work with Senator Bozeman across the aisle if I win? What I have said before, we will continue saying, and what we'll continue doing, is we have plenty of politicians that say do, but what I intend to do is I am 100% fine with working with absolutely anyone on the condition that they are entering into the discussion process in good faith. Um, if they're coming in with an agenda, if they are coming in with ulterior motives, if they're coming in with just a bad faith argument that prima facie problems with it, then I have no time and I have absolutely no patience for it. And anyone who knows me knows I may joke about it all the time, but I have a finely attuned BS detector. The minute I notice it, my face breaks out in all kind of nasty looks, and my eyebrows start going up, and I put a flat affect that isn't pleasant to behold, and my voice drops. Usually, it's real quick. You you can rethink that, or you can just right back. That's your choices. Because if it's not in good faith, don't come in here. To quote literally, I do not suffer fools gladly. I'm not going to waste my time with it. So, if they want to come in good faith, if they want to genuinely work on things to make lives better for the residents of the Fourth District, Americans in general, because I do not believe in politics as a team sport, but I do believe in them as a team effort. That it is something where this affects the lives of everyone everywhere. If you want to work on benefit people, hey, I'm here for it. Let's do it. But if you want to come in with something where one of your underlying premises is that that someone may be lesser than someone else, the discussion's over before it begins. We are not going to deal. We are not going to deal in unfair practices. We are not going to enter into anything wherein one human being is treated as lesser than another. That's not going to happen. And all too often, that is exactly what happens. So, yeah, that's my thing. And I think I've proven this out there in the world. I'm happy to at any given time. Anyone that ever wants to come up to me, I will entertain any discussion, but do expect that if I hear a fallacy in your sorry, I'm a philosophy student, so I'm going to say argument. If I hear a fallacy in your premise or a problematic thought process in where you're coming from, I'm still willing to engage with you, but I am going to call it out because if we don't address that problem, it's it's like leaving a wound untended. You can heal over it, but the problem is still going to be there. So the solution is never going to be what it needs to be. Um, if you start with a false premise, you will end up with a bad conclusion. So, to that end, I'm, across the aisle, I'm happy to, because what I feel like should be the basic difference between whether you want to call it liberal and conservative or whatever. Hate hate putting labels on it, but linguistically, they're simply used. Um, but I'll avoid using the Democrat Republican divide because that has become loaded in and of itself. But when it comes down to different ideologies, trying to figure out a common solution, I am absolutely willing to negotiate methodology. I am fine with us discussing how are we going to go about this? What methods are we going to use? What mechanisms are we going to put in place? What policies are we going to do? Are we going to utilize? But that's a methodological thing. That is not an ideological thing. Um, differing on how we're going to do a thing is drastically different than arguing whether or not we are going to do a thing and whether or not a discussion is on the table. Uh, so hopefully that answers how we'll handle working across the aisle. Okay. Drew saying he's got a call, so I'm not sure that means he's got a phone call or he's putting the call option in the stock market. Well, it shouldn't be. It's on something, so I don't know. It's a trading app that I'm not aware of. Anyway, I do want to thank you all for joining me on this. Again, I apologize if it seems slapdash. This is our first week doing it. This is the first time doing a live stream. Let me hop over real quick. Oh, hello, MKWAA. We did have someone join us over on the YouTube chat. So hello to you, MKWAA. Thank you for joining us on there. I have been mainly on the Facebook feed that most of the comments are coming from, but happy to have you on here. And again, please pardon while the dog gets scritches and keeps bumping my hand out of the way when I'm trying to use the mouse cracker. And just so everyone knows, we are going to be hosting these every Sunday moving forward, all the way through the election. Um, Again, today being very much a test run, it's kind of open forum just to see. We'll be promoting them more moving forward as well. We'll try to make sure to have some dedicated topics each week so that we can dig on them, talk about them in depth. But certainly, we're wide open to any questions anybody has, even if it's already been covered. I know it's somebody that jumped in late. I don't want to that they're not heard. So you're more than welcome to fire away. You may actually ask a question that was asked before in a way that I'm able to provide some different clarity on. Happy to do that. Are you proud of yourself? Are you? I'm sure. Yes, you do. She knows she's a star of the show. Making sure I know my place in that. Oh, Jessica, what do I look forward to most about being in Congress? The genuine answer or the sarcastic answer? That's the eternal debate with me. Um, I'll go with the sarcastic answer since we've been on here for 50 minutes. I will go with kind of fun. What I look forward to the most about being in Congress is figuring out. Yeah, I'm a bit muzzled. That's a good one, Gabe. What I look forward to being in Congress is finding a way. Hopefully that's a little. What I look forward to the most about being in Congress is finding a way to make everyone in the country independent, so everybody has sweet, sweet congressional insurance coverage. No, it's forward to the most. It might be a little bit of wishful thinking. Gabe, man, I'm gonna boost the mic a bit since I'm got it. Because one, the mic only gets so close, and two, I've got half of it sitting right here in my chest. It may be wishful thinking on my part, but what I'm looking forward to the most in Congress is genuinely being able to have these discussions in a way that moves things forward. Um, I, I'm a nerd in that way. Academic. I enjoy having debates about this and figuring things out and having those discussions and talking about ways to make things better. I genuinely enjoy that. I enjoy the problem solving aspect. What I look forward to is what I hope will be productive discussions it's the idea that doing that and engaging in those discussions, having those conversations, the idea that doing that on a daily basis as a regular job, actually producing results and improving the lives of people on a regular basis, I'd like that seems like a fantasy. That just come on, what's not to like about that? Now again, maybe that's me being starry-eyed and, naive and everything else. You get in there and it could be cutthroat and stabby and everything else, and if that's the case, that's fine. I've certainly existed in those conditions before. Um, so I'd say what I look forward to the most is being able to actually implement positive change. That's one of the things that drew me, for those that don't know, I mean, I've been a musician. I played bass. God, I started playing bass in '87, so almost 40 years now. But being in music, the thing I loved the most about it was seeing the joy that it brought to people while playing it. Being in mental health, the thing I liked the most about it was seeing the people's stress getting relieved, seeing their lives improve. Uh, you call it compassion, call it Persian, call it whatever you want, but I genuinely one of the ways that I get my dopamine fix and the way that what makes my brain produce the happy chemicals is seeing other people have a better life. It's seeing conditions improve. So what do I look forward to in Congress the most? It's doing that. It's I'm not worried about all the be on the talk shows or any of that. I don't care about the fundraise. I don't all that's all that's nonsense and pageantry and dressing. I look forward to is actually being in there and improve people's lives. I want to be able to get in there and serve and see that things are actually improving for people, and I wanna be able to ultimately later on be able to leave office with the sense of, "Okay, I positively changed things. I had an impact for people that made their life better." What more I can't imagine anything more to look forward to. Seriously, that's the ultimate, and doing that on a daily basis as a job, seriously, that's 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 paradise. Seriously. That seems like a dream gig. So, that's what I look forward to. Alright, everybody went quiet on me on chat. I don't know if my computer's frozen up or I just lost everybody. And sorry if the camera's a little bit shaky. I do, need a more stable desk setup. You know, every time I go to maneuver the mouse, the whole laptop shakes and the webcam shakes a little bit, so I apologize. Hopefully, no seasickness for anybody. But we are coming up on the 1 hour mark, and do we have any further questions? I don't mind keeping it tight today. Again, first time. Oh, okay. That's a curveball. Sure. How do I hope to change things in this current administration when elected to Congress? Okay. Sorry, wife privilege. Dawn gets the answer first, Jessica. Then I'll go back to yours. My favorite Star Trek captain, Cisco, all the way. Uh, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, favorite series, all of them. Cisco, 100% my favorite captain. Yeah, we'll get past the election, do the whole thing on that. We can have some fun with stuff. We'll start delving into nerd culture some more. But Captain Cisco, Deep Space Nine, absolutely favorite Star Trek. Jessica, curveball. How do you hope to change things in the current administration when elected to Congress? Well, like I said, the biggest thing for me is the BS stops the minute you walk into my door. The uh, if you're coming in with alternate facts, or you're coming in with revisionist history, or you're coming in with a bad faith argument, um, you I can save you the trip. Don't even show up at my office because the minute you cross the threshold, you're about to have one of the worst days of your life because you're going to get absolutely nowhere. That's what I hope to change in the current administration is we have to get back to dealing in reality. We have to get back to dealing in fact, not in opinion presented as fact. Uh, and yeah, that's the biggest change for me is we can argue civility all day long, but uh, I'm not going to sit there and try to pretend like I'm going to placate and be civil with people who have nothing but ill intent to begin with. So, what do I hope to change? The rhetoric's going to do an immediate 180 because we're not playing all this nonsense. Yeah, I'm not going to put up with it, and I'm not going to be quiet about it either. Sorry, that's just not who I am. And being quiet about it and allowing it and placating, pandering to it, that only allows it to persist. So that's going to be over. Uh, right. Coming up on the 1 minute mark before we're at an hour, I will. I know I've got a little bit of a lag time on this, so I will give a couple more minutes if anyone else has any other questions. I mean, I see we don't have a huge audience. We only got 5 people on here this week. You know, I'm not going to deal with MAGA who keep talking while you are trying to answer or question. Oh, don't get me into talking about having to raise bail money. Um, okay, a completely honest answer on how am I going to deal with them if they're just trying to talk over. One, you, my dear, are probably the person best suited on the planet to know exactly how hard it is to attempt to talk over, uh, especially when I set my mind. Two, you have seen when I go stony silent and just let them run out of air, whatever. I mean, I've had 3 kids. I'm not gonna deal with somebody having a hissy fit or, a temper tantrum or whatever, blow it all out because I'm gonna be sitting there quietly taking notes and want to completely disassemble your argument the minute you stop talking. But a lot of it depends on, are we talking about the situation? Is if I am on a panel, like news show or something like that, and keep doing it, I'm going to respect the decorum of the show. I'm going to defer to the host or the moderator. That is their responsibility to keep things in check. If they abdicate that responsibility, then we can throw down as hard as they want to. That just depends on the situation. If we're talking about, house full, it will be handled appropriately. If we're talking about behind closed doors or outside a session, that will be handled as is necessary. But I feel like you of all people, and it may be that you're asking so that other people realize that I am I am not one of the people that you want to start trying to argue with or yell at. Um, Not violent. Make that real clear, real quick. I am not a person given to violence. Um, I'm not a person who's afraid of it. I'm a person that everyone who's ever walked that boundary has decided to step back before crossing that threshold. I hope that they continue to do that. I'm not someone who's going to be cowed by someone yelling at me or trying to talk down to me or denigrate me, and I'm not someone who is going to quietly sit by while someone else is denigrated in my presence. Um, so with MAGA who keep talking, I won't give them a moment's peace either. And if they're gonna spout nonsense, like, I'll honestly, it depends on the mood and it depends on the situation. Because some of them, if they're just gonna sit there and spout utter nonsense, I'll just start spouting the same thing back. I'll start reciting Monty Python skits to them until they realize what's going on, just to confuse them and shut them up. Uh, because the majority of the time, you are dealing with someone who they're in the middle of an absolute fit. They're just like a kid having a tantrum. And they'll if they're ranting like that, they have lost control of the script. They don't know what they're talking about anymore, and I have no problem whatsoever in using absurdity to jerk them back to reality real because that's I'm sorry, if they think that's how they're going to behave themselves and comport themselves, they're mistaken. It's not gonna happen, and if they don't know where the door is, I'm happy to show them to the door. They're 100% welcome to come back in when they calm down or when they're ready to engage in a productive discussion instead of simply yelling. Legislation I want to draft or pass when elected. Oh, so many. Overturning Citizens United, barring sitting elected officials from trading in the stock market, profiteering on their position. Oh, aside from Citizens United, campaign finance reform in general, working towards, a single payer or universal healthcare system to ensure that everyone is insured. Let's see, codifying the equal rights and equal pay. Uh, so many things. Um, would love to actually see a hate speech law get passed. It still abides by the tenets of the First Amendment and freedom of speech. You you have to actually figure out a way to protect rights on both sides of that. So it's a little bit trickier to do because you can't get into thought police territory. Um, but I do think in this particular one, it's going to be a broader topic than we can delve into right now. I'm happy to go into it at a later discussion. Karl Popper's premise or his argument of the paradox of tolerance, where the idea is that to have a tolerant society, the one thing that you cannot tolerate is intolerance itself. Um, that's a kind of a guiding principle and is also legislative. So anything that would be passed regarding hate speech like that would be with the idea of Popper's paradox of tolerance, and in particular, the commentary in response to it of intolerance being breach of the basic social contract, and therefore rendering the person who is engaging in the act uh, to have given up their rights to the social contract effectively, because they are then operating outside the bounds of it. That type of notion. Because, when you were dealing with free speech, we already recognize the limitations on that. You cannot yell fire in a crowded room. You cannot call in bomb threats. You cannot engage in terroristic things. So we already have a basic principle understanding that not all speech is. Um, Therefore, it should not be that big of a leap to understand that speech which is engaged in deliberately for the purpose of harming another, that should not be protected. You know, if you're calling for violent action against someone else, that is not speech that should be protected, because you are asking to violate the basic tenets of the social contract upon which our society rests. Uh, we need to move forward with that. Um, might be a little bit pie in the sky. That might be, depending on which of the legislators can get forward with that. That's something that I would like to see. Um, I hate to say we got other things to deal with first, because we really don't, because that's honestly ensuring that people don't die from hateful rhetoric and somebody calling them out and inciting violence against them. So that's a, and how am I going to get my point across if the reps that I'm speaking to do not have my knowledge or vocabulary? I will guess I will just one, I've got a phone on me at all times. I can ask them which word confused them, and we can look it up online immediately. Um, um, probably I probably try and find an aide who's really good at picking up on social cues, and they could, I'll give them a little red flag they can pick up. Where if at any point they notice that the person I'm talking to has zoned out or checked out the conversation or went over their head, they can move the flag, and I can go, yeah, flag on the play. Which where did I lose it? Put it out, and I can back up and we can press it. Obviously, being a bit of an absurdist idea, but I would hope that I have enough humility that if someone's talking about something and I don't know, I mean, I've shown it in this live stream earlier where if I don't know something, I'm just going to say I don't know. I'm not educated enough on that yet. I need to do further research. Um, I would hope that other people have the same humility and lack of ego to be able to do the same. Um, if something comes up in conversation where you don't understand it, that's a point of going, whoa, pause the conversation, explain that a little bit better, and back up. And okay, we can do that. Um, that's how we improve as people. And if we're going to try to improve the lives of people as elected officials, we have to first be willing to improve ourselves by engaging in those um, minor discussions to make sure that points are clear, that we are communicating effectively with one another. So that's my hope. Of course, that's a high bar. Not everybody operates at that level, but yeah, that's my hope. That's what I would want to see. Um, I've said from the beginning that I was running to be the politician that I wanted to see because I wasn't seeing anybody else doing it. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, over here on YouTube saying the audio is spotty, but not the video. That makes sense. It does. It makes total sense. I appreciate that input, KY. Uh, I'm not sure what I would have to do to address that, but I will look into it moving forward. So thank you very much for that input. I will definitely check on that. Um, I will go ahead and give a couple more minutes. We're a little bit past the hour mark. I don't mind going long. We have picked back up to, we've got, let's see, looks like, yeah, we've got 3 on YouTube, and well, we did have 5, or we did have 6, now we're at 5 over on Facebook, so not a huge crowd, but hey, first week, first try, and very little advertising, so I don't mind. But no, I'll give a couple more minutes if anybody else has any questions, and if not, we will wrap things up, and I can get back to being a decent dog bed for Carmen again, since that's obviously what I am supposed to be doing according to her. And showing 6:15 on the clock, I will give it until 6:18. So wherever you are, like I said, I know there's a time delay on this, but I will give it 3 minutes for any further questions, and if there aren't any, we'll go ahead and wrap for this week. And again, Mekwa, I'll just call you that over there on YouTube. Again, I will check on the audio functioning for that. I'll see what's going on there, try to address that for the future. Uh, Screen Mark, you know, let me know and understand and work for the representative people. Hope you've been in favor of checks and balances. Thanks for doing this. We're very welcome. Yes, I'm 100% in favor of the checks and balances. That's again, that's one of the major things. I know Jessica asked early on what's something Mr. Westerman had done that I would disagree with. I said that the majority of my disagreement with him have been inaction, not living up to his responsibilities as a part of the legislative body in Congress that is supposed to be a check and balance on both the judiciary and the executive branches. That's that's honestly one of the big factors. Like we have to actually have people willing to call people out to check and balance. Um, that has to be not only on the different branches of the government, that has to be on each other. That's we're a society based on the premise of massively diverse people working together for a common good. That inherently requires a certain mindset and a certain degree of awareness that is a check and balance in itself. So, yes, I am always in favor of checks and balances, not just in the broad terms, but in the minutia as well. So, yeah, and you are very welcome for doing this. Hopefully, hopefully this grows. Hopefully, this becomes a bigger thing as we move forward, become week. Um, and we've only got a few people on here, but apparently TikTok didn't feel like cooperating this week. So if you would jump over to TikTok, you can find the link. The website is scrolling at the bottom, russellforarkansas.com. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can find the social links. Click on the TikTok button and subscribe to me there. Hopefully we can get the numbers up to where it looks like cooperating with the live. We can be simulcast good one on all three. And, I might actually be lucky enough to have people that'll moderate on all three so that I'm not hopping back and forth between tabs. Would be awesome. But that does bring us to 6:18. And seeing no further questions, I am going to go ahead and wrap us on this week. We will do this again. We're going to do this weekly. It'll be every Sunday, 5 p.m. Central. We'll do more to get the word out on this, and we'll keep trying to get more people involved. And of course, these will, to the best of my knowledge, these will be recorded. I know I'm recording it loud for the software that I'm using simulcast. So yes, Jessica, you should have material to clip and use for further content. But having said all that, I am going to go ahead and end things and thank everyone for joining us this week. And again next week and in the future. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.